Hey everyone, today I want to talk to you about a thing called reality. This word reality, it has this word real in it, and there's a sense that reality is real. However, by the end of this conversation, you may not necessarily think that's so. In saying that, there's a sense it is real for you and in your reality. So here we go. Is reality real, or is it just a perception? So I'm going to explain this a little bit further using a concept derived from neuro-linguistic programming. The concept is called the map is not the territory. Okay, so the way that the NLP guys explain the map is not the territory is that at the moment, this is my practice. If I went onto Google Maps, I might be able to, type in the address, it'd come up with a topographical perspective of it. I might even be able to get a satellite perspective of it. I might be able to get a street view of it. And then that would give me a sense of what this house looked like, what the practice looked like. However, when I step into the house, I then start to realise that there's a very different perspective. I've now got rooms, I've got colours on the walls, I've got paintings on the walls, I've got sounds that are happening. There's a sense of coolness that sits within this room, and a sense of temperature as well too. And I might even get like an emotional vibe of what the space represents. Very different to what you would then see from externally, from a topographical perspective, and something that you might find online. So when we talk about the map is not the territory, it suggests that the way that we see life is not necessarily the way that life is. So it also suggests that there is not one universal reality that everybody experiences. And what it also suggests is that our reality is based upon our perception and the way that we perceive our environment and the information that comes to us, and how we then analyse it, perceive it, and come to a perception of it. So your reality equals your perception. Now, perception is based upon what you focus on. What you focus on is based upon what you place your attention on. Now, for some of you who may have been watching me and following for a period of time now, I would have said that your reality is based upon what you place your attention on. And this is where we're getting this from. So whatever I'm placing my attention on at this particular moment, at any particular moment, activates something within me. Now, whether that's a thought process that's activating an emotional process, or an emotional process that's activating a thought process, whatever is activating within me at that particular time is what I place my attention on, and that impacts the reality that I am experiencing in that particular space and that particular time. Now, what that says is that as much as there's this physical reality that you guys are watching at the moment and I'm experiencing at the moment, the way that you would read the situation is different to the way that I'm reading it. And that comes from my experiences as a human being, your experience as a human being, but also the relationship that I have with this practice and this place. Now, this is the place that I grew up in. You know, I know this house, this room, since 1983. For some of you, this would be the first time that you've been invited into this room, and the way that you're perceiving this room would have its own meaning. There's a picture in the background here that is a really beautifully vibrant picture, and it denotes a scene in Bali. Now, I haven't been to Bali, but some of you may have been to Bali, and you might recognise some of the signs that are up on the picture. Then, as you read that information, and as it comes into your perception, it might remind you of experiences that you've had in Bali, whether they be positive or negative. So, see how you're experiencing this video in a particular way. I'm experiencing it in a particular way, even though I'm sharing these words and this space with you. So, your perception is based upon your experiences that you've had throughout your life. My perception is based upon my experiences that I've had through my life. If our perceptions are different, then there is a great chance that the reality that we experience in each and every moment is going to be different as well. So this is where I then say that there's no one universal reality that each reality is each person's own perception based on their own experiences that they've had throughout their whole life. There will be overlaps within the information and the way that we perceive things, depending on our experiences, depending on how we understand the world, and even depending on some of the similarities in values and alignments and resonations that we actually have with each other. Okay? So, from the NLP perspective, what these guys are saying is that in any one moment there's over 2 million bits of information. Okay? Now, we could look externally within this room, and I know you've only got a small view of what this room means, or what it actually shows, but you could pick up quite a few bits of information. Maybe not 2 million bits of information, and that's fair enough. Because I can see a bit more, I could probably pick up a little bit more information from the external reality that I'm experiencing. But my internal reality can read so much more, and we can easily see that I could pick up a lot of information in relation to my internal reality, because this wonderful internal reality that we have, this thing called the mind, it can time travel. It can go forward in time, it can go back in time, it can go back in time into experiences that we've had, and it can actually change those experiences. It can pull from a wide range of experiences and associations and memories and relationships and create its own story. So it's easy to see that in one moment you have access to over 2 million bits of information. Now, that's a lot of information, and it wouldn't be wonderful if our minds could actually fathom all of that. Well, it can't, because our mind has specific purposes, and in each and every moment, what the NLP guys are saying is that we can only handle 132 bits of information. Now, that 132 bits of information gets broken down into chunks of information, so we chunk it down to 7 to 9 chunks of information. Okay, so what that suggests is that we delete, we distort, and we generalize all of the other bits of information, which comes down to about 1,999,868 bits of information out of the 2 million bits of information, because we're only taking in 132 bits of information. Okay, so what that also suggests is that 132 bits of information then makes up your reality. That's interesting, because then out of all of this information that I could be deriving meaning from, I'm only seeing a proportion of it, and that proportion of it is 132 bits. Now, the other interesting thing here is that 132 bits of information is actually driven by what we believe about self and others. Because what we constantly do, the mind, what it constantly does is it looks for evidence to support what we believe about self and others, so we can say that we are right. So Henry Ford said, whether you believe you're right or you're wrong, you are always right. So depending on your viewpoint, depending on what your belief about self and others, you will constantly look for 132 bits of information in your world, externally and internally, and you will constantly seek out information to give you evidence to suggest that what you believe is correct. And that's why wherever we go, so that's why the person who sees the glass as half empty will constantly find 132 bits of information that suggests that that is so. Whereas the other person who sees the glass half full will then also start to see 132 bits of information that suggests that that is so. And no wonder these people do not see eye to eye, because they're looking at different 132 bits of information. Wow, that's pretty mind-blowing, isn't it? Now, the empowering thing about this is that if I'm constantly searching for information to validate what I believe about self and others, why wouldn't I seek information that is of an empowering nature rather than a disempowering nature? That's an interesting thought. If I started to believe that I was worthy, that I had value, that I could be loved, that I could be accepted, and that I could trust myself, I could trust others, and I could also trust life, I would then start to find 132 bits of information that represented that. Whereas, if I come from a fear-based perspective, that I can't trust, that I need to stay safe, that there's a lot of bad people out there, and that I'm quite paranoid of the world, I'll also find 132 bits of information that represents that as my truth. And then I can then go and find other people who also agree with that, so it further validates my perception of the world. And then that then becomes my reality. And then the more airtime I then give that, the more momentum I then create in creating that reality. Now, it's not to say that these things don't happen, but what it is saying is that, do I need to constantly focus on that? Because I tell you what, if I watch the news every night, I would start to believe that I live in a very terrible world where I cannot trust people, that there's potential that people are going to come and shoot me. I wouldn't go out to the shopping centre because I might be scared that somebody's going to hurt me. You know, I wouldn't put money into the bank because I was afraid that someone will take it out. I wouldn't, like I ride bikes, I wouldn't go on the road because I would be scared that people are going to run me over. Now, I'd stay safe by not doing those things, but I certainly wouldn't be living life. So what this video suggests is that reality isn't real. It's only a perception. Now, if it's only a perception, then who directs that perception? Who directs the focus? Who directs the attention? Well, I do. Do I have a choice in the attention or what I place my attention on? Yes, I do, if I then become aware of it. When I become aware of it, I can then start to shift that attention to things of more of an empowering nature. And why wouldn't I want to do that? Because I love myself, I accept myself, I respect myself, and I want others to love me, so I can also then love the world. So it's a really, really interesting way of looking at things. When people come and work with me through the coaching program, this is the stuff that we work on. We start to shift people's paradigms. But we don't do it from in a sense, a positive psychology paradigm where it's all rainbows and unicorns and fluffy clouds. It's more so that we have this opportunity to recognise that as much as we can feel discomfort and there's stuff that doesn't go to plan and stuff that doesn't go our way, we can still see the gratitude in it, we can still see the value in it, we can still see the opportunity in it. So I'm still looking at my world through the lens of value and opportunity, and see how that is my 132 bits of information. So anything that comes my way, I'm going, what's the opportunity in this? Where's the value and how is this a gift? I'm going to then learn, because I'll tell you what, I'll then find it. So it's a really, really interesting understanding of what life is. And if you give yourself time to take this on and let it sink into you and sit with it, you'll start to see how you are constantly searching for information to validate what you believe about self and what you believe about others. Okay? I hope that made sense. Been wanting to share that with you for a good while now, but it's really, really a beautiful way of coming to an understanding of what reality actually is. Okay? All right. Thanks, everybody. Hope you enjoyed that. Leave a comment below if you got inspired by it, or if it even just pushed the buttons. Happy to field either way. All right. Thanks, everyone. See you next time.